Horror Stories in York, Part 35. 22nd of February 1572, the severed head of the Earl. Thomas Percy, 7th Earl of Northumberland, was a Catholic at a time when Queen Elizabeth I, the Protestant Queen, was up on the throne, which basically made it illegal to be a Catholic. So Thomas Percy led the Rising of the North. He gathered together his army and went down south to take on the Queen. Unbeknownst to him, the Queen already was aware of his plans, and she has had her army set up in waiting, ready to ambush Thomas Percy and his army. And that is exactly what happened. Thomas Percy's army was taken by surprise, scattered throughout the land. He himself, now a fugitive, went on the run, and he managed to hide himself way up in Scotland for the next 2 years, until he was eventually captured by the Scottish barons, who wrote a letter to the Queen to say, "We have your fugitive, Thomas Percy, for the sum of £2,000. We will turn him over, and you can do with him what you like." The Queen agreed. She paid the money, and Thomas Percy was marched south from Edinburgh and brought here to York for his oh-so-special public execution. As he was a noble, he was to be beheaded. And so, on the 22nd of August, 1572, a specially constructed scaffold was constructed just outside of All Saints Church on pavement. The hay was laid on the scaffold to soak up all the blood. The block was placed in the centre, and the basket was placed in front of the block, ready to capture the head. A large crowd had gathered to see this nobleman being executed, but Thomas Percy very calmly made his way up the scaffold, and he addressed his final words to the crowd. He said, "I am a Percy in life and in death." He placed his hands about his back and leant over the block. From there, the executioner swung down with one fatal blow of the axe, severing his head with one strike. He then raised up the head of Sir Thomas Percy, declared to the crowd, "Behold, here is the head of a traitor." His headless body was then buried in an unmarked grave here at the Church of St. Crux at the bottom of the shambles, whereas his head was spiked on top of Micklegate Bar, where it remained for 2 years until it was eventually taken down by Percy sympathisers. They wanted to rebury it with his body, but as his body was buried in an unmarked grave, they'd actually forgotten about the location, and so they buried his head in another churchyard on the opposite side of the city centre. It is said to this day, Thomas Percy's headless ghost rises from his grave, staggers through the streets of York looking for his head.